Are you the type of player that just loves watching your opponents suffer? Azerite C is finally moved past, guys. Arceus Island comes out tomorrow, and with that, we're going to be here to upgrade one of our favorite decks from the Azerite C metagame, Bend to My Will. That's right, at once upon a time, this was a budget deck. However, some things have changed. Some prices have gone up. It's not without a shadow of a doubt, not below $100 anymore. Clarabelles have almost doubled in price. They might even triple in price. So this still might be a good time to go and pick them up. If there is any chance of Emerald being truly successful, I think in the current metagame, it's going to be on the backs of Clarabelle. So today we're going to be breaking down all of the new cards from Arceus Island and really discussing which of those cards can go into the Emerald Sapphire bounce concept, what pieces can be added to the core, and kind of like what we can look out for and see how we can make this deck even better in the Arceus Island metagame. Let's get into it. So once again, shout out to our friends at Dreamborn Inc. for having a wonderful display for us to kind of go through and really break down some of the cards that we're going to be trying to add to our deck. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time on a card if it's not necessarily worth it. If it's meant for another archetype, we're going to throw it in. But for the most part, I want to spend time on the cards I believe really have a chance to be good in this deck. So starting with that, we have Lady. Sorry, guys, we're not a Lady in the Tramp deck. I don't think we're going to play this card at all. It ain't going to happen. Pete is another card. I think it's cool. I think it's interesting, but I don't think we're going to be playing an Emerald Sapphire, so probably just going to move right on from him. Kind of useless. Dawson, if this card was inkable, maybe you would see some love, but it's uninkable, and I just don't see it. Monsieur Darak, nope, we're not going to be playing that guy. Ain't happening. Toulouse, nope, not playing that guy. Baymax, I don't think so. Very unlikely. Donald Duck, nope, not in this deck either. Duchess, nope. Sorry, guys. Greenwich, no, that doesn't make sense for us either. Stitch, nope, not playing that one either. Tramp, nope. Yokai will probably be the first one that people want to talk about. And Yokai is okay at best, but in my opinion, if we need Yokai, if we need to like play Yokai for his ability, we're probably just doing it wrong and it's just too slow. If he cost 1 and we would consistently get 1 off of all of our Floodborns, maybe he would have a chance, but that's just not true since he costs 2. It just feels like we're paying 2 up front to cheap shift later, but how many times we're really shifting in a game? How can we even rely on this guy's going to be around? Like if it had Ward, maybe it's closer, but I just think yet it's not going to happen. Yzma, no, I don't really think so either. Not on average is my guess. Freckles, we're definitely not puppies, not happening. Honey Lemon, nope, not happening. Marie, I just, maybe if we need a character that minuses 2, but we have Sapphire Coil, so no. Mattias, nope, not happening. Penny, interesting. If there's enough heroes, like maybe, but probably not. So again, just the no. Anastasia, no, we don't. This isn't what our deck does or needs. Not happening. Belrilaz, I can't say this guy's name. I feel bad immediately, but another thing, we just don't need this character. Finally, we get one that we can talk about. Hero Hamada. So Hero Hamada is a really great addition to the game. 3 cost, 3/3, with 1 lore and the ability of when a Floodborn is placed on top of this character, you get to draw a card. So whether it's Universal Baymax, whether it's Shift Hero himself, you basically just automatically get to replace your Floodborn character. A lot of the times when you make shifts, we do it and we take over the body, and therefore we, in a way, go down on card advantage because we no longer have, it's not like we're playing another body to the table. We're just kind of making one better. This kind of takes that away. So it allows you to draw your card back, which I think is pretty good. I think it's pretty powerful. And honestly, like a 3 cost 3/3 is fine for stats. So it's one of those cards that if you really just want more, if you're going to play Hero Hamada, which like I think you should, then I think that this card is going to end up being pretty good and pretty standard in my opinion. And so far in my testing, I felt really good about playing him. when in doubt, he's a 3/3 body, which is cool. You can actually utilize him really well with Universal Baymax. So you can have the 3/3 body if you need to. You can run into something, and then you can shift on. So if he has the ability to take out a character and take some damage, and then you can shift on, and you didn't need to sing or didn't need to take anything bigger, you actually get to heal the damage off him because Universal Shift. So I think this card plays pretty well into the deck, lets you draw cards, and it just gives a primary shift target to some of the more impactful cards that we're going to be discussing later on in the video. Pacha, 3 cost, 3/2. When you have more cards in your hand than each opponent, he gets 2 lore. Like, this card's actually very interesting. Our deck is kind of built around giving our opponent a bunch of cards and then taking them all away. So having a 3 cost, 3 lore character is intriguing, but I don't think on average we're going to play this card. I would not be shocked if he like randomly shows up as a 1-of, though, just as a way to gain 3 lore for cheap while still maintaining board position. Thomas O'Malley, he's 3 cost, 4/2 with Ward. I think Ward's very important here. This card seems not very good, I think, on average, but having a 4/2 with Ward means that we would always have a way to answer like particular characters when we choose to, and our opponent has less answers to interact with that. So I think just because of that, having a 3 cost, 4 strength character that always gets the challenge, probably maybe at least twice. With Sapphire Coil, it could be more. So this is definitely a card that I think is interesting, but I'm not saying that we need this card, but I do think that it's one that's notable, and probably mainly not talking about it. Bell, our wonderful new apprentice, the 3 cost, 3/3 with 1 lore, and the ability What a Mess. During your turn, you may banish chosen item of yours to play this character for free. So Bell, traditionally in the Bend in My Will decks, we don't really play items. So I'm not crazy about this, but this is definitely a card that for Emerald Sapphire, I think that it opens up the opportunity to play more items. Obviously, Tamatoa, Sapphire Coil, like we got a bunch of blue cards that really are, saying, hey, there's some incentives here. You can try this out. So I do believe that there will be a list that could potentially be playing Bell. There's a list that could definitely be playing Tamatoa. So there's definitely choices here that are being made that I could see Bell being good and being played. For me, off the bat, I don't play any items. I definitely don't play popsicles. I'm not playing Hiram. So for me, I'm not going to play this card. I'm just not, I don't think it's going to help. And I think you would have to be more committed to an even bigger item list. I think if we were just playing popsicles and like a few coils, I don't think that's enough, because you're probably playing Hiram and you would much rather have Hiram to pop than put this 3/3 into play. But again, it's also notable saying like, hey, if the entire meta is aggressive, then me being able to put a 3/3 into play and then being able to sing songs is a big deal. So it's really going to be a positioning thing. If the position in the metagame requires us to go more items and kind of just understand that like this is how we have to play the game, then I can certainly see Bell getting some love. But off the bat, it's not a card I'm looking to play in Emerald Sapphire on average. Hey guys, wanted to pop in real quick and just say, listen, if you are liking how I've been doing these videos and kind of breaking down these different ink combinations, I did Amethyst Steel earlier in the week. I now have Emerald Sapphire. I want you to tell me in the comments real quick what archetype you would like to see get broken down like this, and if there's anything differently you would like me to do in that video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let's get back to the rest of this. Gation, Molarel, 3 cost, 3/4 vanilla, ain't happening. Lucky, again, we are not a puppy dog, so we are not playing this card. Moana, I mean, this card is actually terrible. I don't even understand it. Definitely not playing that. Pepper, again, not happening. Robin Hood, unless we're building some new version with Robin Hoods and Shift Robin Hoods, I don't see any use for this. If we just need stats, then like, hey, we now have a 4 cost inkable 4/4. We might even have one before and I just don't remember. But at least this is like, hey, maybe we just want some stats and a turn 3 4/4 that's inkable, so I have the choice whether or not to play it. Maybe it actually is okay. Ironically, like it's simple, it's straightforward, but Scrooge McDuck is insane, but it is uninkable. And on average, we don't necessarily need the 5 strength. We just need the 4 willpower or the 5 willpower. So there's a world that this card just like ironically is positioned okay as a turn 3 play just because it answers mostly every character that we want it to and has a 2-for-1 built in. And of course, if it's a 4/4 body, it has the ability to kind of like take something out and then shift Baymax onto, so you could actually heal the damage. So I don't know. Maybe there's a world where this card actually gets some love, and it's just being looked over because it's just a vanilla card. The King of Hearts is a 4-cost uninkable, 3 strength, 3 willpower, 2 lore with the ability Objectionable State. Damaged characters can't challenge your characters. I think this card's very good. I think it's very interesting, and I certainly think it will see play. I just don't think it's going to see play in Emerald Sapphire, but I do think it's a very unique card. And, you know, Emerald Ruby decks are definitely going to look at this. Even maybe Emerald Steel decks might be looking at this. So I think it's a pretty cool card. I just don't think we need it for Emerald Sapphire. Shere Khan is a card that everyone's crazy about. And listen, you know, I'll be honest, guys. Like, if we're like able to like functionally live the dream, right? And we get to put a Clarabelle into play, and then the next turn we just get to ink and then slam a Shere Khan, discard a whole hand, and then draw it all back because of Clarabelle. That sounds awesome. But when we don't do that, this card is bad. But I will say too, like, sometimes you get to the end game, you guys are both top decking anyway, and if we can just easily put a 4/4 that gains 4 lore turn in play, maybe. If we become some lucky dime deck, maybe. But on average, I'm not super excited about Shere Khan. Hey guys, wanted to interrupt real quick and just say, if you haven't yet, you should definitely check out our Arceus Island full guide. It is the ultimate guide to Arceus Island. In here, you already have a limited resource for kind of helping you out this weekend with your release events. There's going to be some draft information coming as well. There's also a full buyer's guide for pre-sale. There's 2 chapters on it already. There's also some goal-oriented things kind of discussing your mindset for Disney Lorcana. And of course, past that, there's going to be tournament reports. I've already written 2 tournament reports from the last couple weeks that I've been playing the game. There's stuff for Amethyst Steel. There's stuff for ironically, the Sapphire Emerald deck that we are talking about today and other versions of it. I've already played 2 different versions, kind of just trying everything out from Arceus Island. So if you're looking to get even more information from us, this is the best way to support us. This is going to basically be our Set 7 diary. Every single member of the team, when they play in tournaments, they're going to write small tournament reports. They're going to put that information in there. We're going to share our deck list of this. Anything that you want to look at to be up to date with where Team TFM is going to be in the Arceus Island full guide. So definitely check it out. And in the pinned comments below right now, there's a 25% out discount code. So check it out. Clarabelle News Reporter is the 4-cost inkable, 3 strength, 3 willpower, 2 lore with support and her ability Breaking Story. Your other characters with support get +1 strength. This card was something I was excited for, but after testing it for a few weeks, I'm not really finding it very useful. I just think that it's not good enough. The 2 lore is not really what we want. And so, in most of my decks, you're going to see with this combination, we're playing the 1-cost Clarabelle and Morph, because we're also playing Hero Hamada. So, like, this card just ends up not being necessary, and you're better off just having the versatility from another card. Jedediah, not a card we're going to play. Just don't need this card, but, shout out to Jedediah. Kita, I do think is a very interesting card. So, Kita is the 4-cost inkable, 3 strength, 3 willpower, 1 lore with ward, and the ability Key to the Puzzle. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Put 1 into your inkwell and exert it, and the other on top of your deck. So this is a card I think is quite functional. I think it's very interesting because it kind of gives us a turn 3 where we can put Keita into play. It has ward, so it's protected. And then we have the option to really, like, very much similar to what Grandma Tala did for us, where we had like a 3/3 that we could sing a song with or that we can challenge with and things like that. So I think Keita still gives us that option. It obviously doesn't give us the immediate card back, but it does like just have a pseudo how far I'll go on a stick. So exerting, put a card into the inkwell, maybe triggering a Sapphire Coil with muses and things like that. All of a sudden we can start singing, doing some stuff. So I think it's interesting. I do think it's a card that you should consider. It's a card that I haven't yet to test it in this list. I've tested it in some other things, but it's a card that I'm definitely, it's on my radar saying like, okay, like if I turn into this Sapphire Coil deck and I need to care more about Sapphire Coils, then this is a card that I would probably very much consider, because having the ability of giving something -4 in a turn is very powerful, specifically in a world where if we're heads up and, if all I have to do is bounce your card and keep my key to protect it because it has ward as well, it could go a long way. So I think that the Kita is very interesting. I think it has a lot of potential, and it's definitely a card that I wouldn't just like write off immediately. Obviously, we all wish that the card went to our hand when we used it, but it doesn't. It goes to the top of your deck. You have the information. Utilize the information as best as possible. We can't play Maid Mirroring, guys. It sucks that it's in here. That's funny. Scrooge McDuck, again, maybe if we go to some item thing, I don't know. But in all honesty, I don't think this is a card for Scrooge McDuck. I think this card is probably not worth $30 right now. So please don't pre-order it at that price. Cheshire Cats is the 5-cost inkable, 4 strength, 3 willpower, 2 lore with the ability Mad Grin. When you play this character, you may deal 2 damage to chosen damage character. Again, we're not a damage deck, so I just don't see it. Baymax Upgraded Robot is the 5-cost inkable, 3 strength, 5 willpower, 1 lore with support, and the ability Advanced Scanner. When you play this card, look at the top 4 cards of your deck, and you may put a Floodborn from among them into your hand. So Baymax was interesting. I did play it week 1. I don't think the impact is enough. I think his stat line is just not worth getting a card for. If this was a 4/5, maybe even a 5/5 for 5 with this ability, it would be much closer. But I think it got weighed down because of support. I kind of wish it just didn't even have support and was just the stats. If this was just a 5-cost 5/5 with this ability, I think we would play this card. But I think because it's a 3/5, it's just too vulnerable. It doesn't actually get the job done. It's just not really doing anything that we truly want it to. And finding Floodborns is nice, but it's not guaranteed. And we don't play, like 20 Floodborns on our deck. So I don't think it's going to fall off. Again, the Hey, the Jasmine, and the Lady Cluck here are comical. We can't play those cards, and they're just there hanging out, guys. Basil is the 6-cost 3/6 with 3 lore and the ability Draw Them Out. When this character quests, opposing damage character gains Reckless until the start of your next turn. This is just like a card that if we're playing damages, it's cool, but we're not, and we can't play this. Baymax Giant Robot is a 6-cost uninkable, 5 strength, 5 willpower, 2 lore with universal shift, which enables it to be able to shift onto any character in play on your side of the board. And it has the ability Functionally Improved. When you play this character, if you use shift to play him, remove all damage from him. So you can shift in, immediately heal your character to full health, repair it, and kind of move the game forward, which kind of enables like another way to functionally get a 2-for-1 out of the deal, because oftentimes when you shift, you keep your damage, and then he would just probably be banished when you challenged or something like that. But the idea that you could challenge something early and then shift Baymax on top and heal it is a big deal. Keeping characters alive is very functionally important. I do think this card's been fun. It's been interesting. It enables really unfair things like turn 3 Baymax, which can sing How Far or Go immediately, challenge immediately. So it definitely enables some nice things to have a 5/5 on turn 3 that can shift, like that can challenge or sing immediately. So because of that, I think this card is very good, but I do think trying to find room for it could be difficult with Hero Hamada that we're going to talk about in a second here. It definitely adds another layer if this card can also be warded and evasive. So it's just kind of a pick your poison type thing. And I do think that there will be decks that do play this card. I don't know that it'll be in every deck card. Lady Tremaine, the uninkable legendary. Yeah, we're not playing this card, guys. It's not good. Please don't play it. It's not worth it. Which brings us to Tamatoa Happy as a Clam, the 6-cost inkable, 4 strength, 5 willpower, 2 lore with the 2 abilities. Coolest Collection. When you play this character, return up to 2 item cards from your discard to your hand, and the ability I'm Beautiful Baby. When this character quests, you may play an item for free. I think we clearly know that Tamatoa is insane. It really is. It's a very, very good card. Again, traditionally, we are not the item variant list. I'm not really playing anything big. We're not playing Lucky Dimes. We're not even playing any items at all. Like maybe we play Sapphire Coil, but we're not playing Popsicles. So The first ability doesn't get any items back. The second ability doesn't quest. So on average, I don't think in the traditional versions of this list, this card is going to see play. Do I think that you can build a version that would play it? Yes, I do. I just think that it's a very different type of list. It's not nearly what we were playing with in set 6. And there is a lot to be explored there. And we'll probably make an entire video on that deck explicitly. But in this particular deck that we're working on today, this card doesn't do anything as similar to what Bell doesn't do anything. Very powerful cards. Definitely gives us the ability of choice and thought. I do believe it's going to be a reconstruction for the deck overall. Therefore, right now, we're staying away from this. We definitely don't want to be buying these week 1 if we're Emerald Sapphire tryhards. Let the prices hopefully dip a little bit before you just like overspend. I think that, you know, the card very well might be over $50. Honestly, so like if you can get them for 40, it's probably worth it. Because I don't think there will be a world where this card goes below $35, unless there's just no one selling them and no one buying them, and like sellers just feel forced to sell them. But in all honesty, I think this card is going to be above $50. It's going to be the Maui Shark of the set, and it might be a slow start. So I personally think that this is a card that if you should purchase this if you're a Sapphire player, regardless whatever ink you're playing. You should just buy this card, because if you don't and you feel punished for it later because it's now $60, $65, which has happened in the past, I would just go and buy these. If you can get them, I'm not honest, if you can get them for like anything from $35 to $40 or below that, just buy them. This now takes us to Hero Homata. The 7-cost inkable, 4 strength, 6 willpower with 3 lore. It has shift 5 and the ability You Can Be Way More. Your Floodborn characters that have a card under them gain evasive and ward. I personally believe this is one of the best cards in the set. So very good, so very strong, so very problematic for your opponents. There are obviously things that are very good against this particular card. Maui Shark is the one that comes to mind. But if we're going to build a deck that's strictly around Hero Homata, we can just understand that our problematic character to deal with is a card like Maui Shark, and therefore we just have to play the game understanding that. But most decks simply do not have an answer to Hero Homata, and they don't have an answer when you gave all of your other Floodborn characters also evasive and ward. Even if this card was just he has evasive and ward, he would be insane. But the idea that we can make Baymax evasive ward, we can make Clarabelle evasive and ward, like so many things that are so very good and really cause a lot of problems for your opponent. And the card by itself kind of demands a be prepared type card, because on average, they just don't have answers to your Hero Homata. I'm a big fan. I think this card's great. You should definitely give it a chance. Then we come to our Daisy Duck, the 8-cost uninkable, 6 strength, 5 willpower with 3 lore and the ability Foul Play. Once during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, chosen opponent chooses one of their characters and returns that card to their hand. I think this card's very interesting. I think our deck is designed to keep characters out of play, and therefore having a card that just reads, when I ink, my opponent has to return a card to their hand, is definitely a worthwhile card to explore. Do I think it's an every deck card? No. Does the uninkable hurt? Yes. But I would not be shocked if this is a type of card that this deck does find a way to play. Early on, it might not be necessarily worth it, but depending on how the metagame develops, if it goes to be a less aggressive style and a more just, hey, I'm going to win on Tamatoas or I'm going to win on Aerials, this card does effectively answer Aerial, which is one of the cards that we just do not have a way to get rid of. So the idea that this card is a way to make our opponent choose Aerial to put her back in her hand is a very big deal, and could be a way out of it if Sapphire Steel is what's running the metagame. Now we move on to our actions, songs, and of course, items. Action number 1, Wake Up Alice, return chosen damage character to that player's hand. Again, we're not a damage deck. I don't think it's very easy to be a damage deck, so we're just not going to play this card. Wooder's Memory is a 1-cost uninkable. Look at the top 4 cards of chosen player's deck. Put 1 on the top of their deck and the rest on the bottom of their deck in any order. If this card was inkable, we would 100% play it probably all the time. Even though it's, not draw a card, it's still set up. It's still like sift through and find the card that we need the most. I think it would be strictly better than develop your brain on average, specifically on turn 1 or turn 3 after we sail to get the most information. But it's uninkable, and therefore I just don't think we can play it. Ink Geyser. That's right. One of the functional best cards in the set, one of the most exciting cards in the set. Each player exerts all cards in their inkwell. Then each player with more than 3 cards in their inkwell returns cards at random from their inkwell to their hand until they have 3 cards in their inkwell. This is a card we keep talking about because it is very interesting. It's very good. I finally played games with this weekend. I played about 16 games on Monday night at locals with it. It was a lot of fun. The deck is definitely there. There is something that's going to be had. Someone is going to figure out a way to break this. I hope it's me, but in all honesty, it has problems. And to me, the core problem is just figuring out what we even need to answer. Right now, it's brand new game. Everyone's trying new cards. Everyone's trying new decks. So it's very difficult to hone in on exactly what is like required in your local metagame. We don't have a DLC or anything like that coming up. So it's not like we're super focused on this like gigantic 2,000 person tournament, what that metagame would look like. It's really close to what your local is. So, if your local is an aggressive local, then, Ink Geyser isn't as good in those. Although I will say I still played it to success against aggro decks as a way to keep them like really down on 3 cards and then just always be able to answer. But, on average, it might be difficult. Against the more controlling decks, Ink Geyser is phenomenal because you have the ability to very quickly just put cards back into play, kind of stay up, sing your songs, be protected by Hero Hamada and things like that, draw cards. You just do a lot of things that are really good. So I think that it has a chance. But on average, right now, I think we just need to be like a sit and wait, or, we don't have to sit and wait and we can just get lucky and hope we guess correctly. But I'm a little more hesitant to those things sometimes, which is why I'm talking about bend to my will in this list to start. But again, this card 100% going to see play. It very well could see play in the deck that I'm going to showcase you in a moment. Of course, the last card here is Return to Hercules. What does that card do? Let's talk about it. Return to Hercules is a 5-cost inkable legendary action. Each player may reveal a card from their hand and play it for free. I think this card is cool. I think it's interesting. I think that if you are the Return of Hercules deck, you will likely have the better card to play for free. If we don't have to necessarily worry about Maleficent Dragons, if Ruby Sapphire can't afford to play those, then Return to Hercules is going to look like a really good card. I think it's a type of card that you might be able to put in your deck every few weeks as the metagame is kind of like developing and changing and things like that. You might be able to catch someone off guard pretty early. If you want to build some cool Mufasa deck, this is a great way to do it. And I just think there's definitely a chance that you're going to see this play. I don't think it's an every week play, because if it's an every week play, then people just modify their decks to kind of just have an answer when you play it, and then they can just easily, play like some giant inkable that in their deck that they can just say, oh, this is always ink until it's not. So I think that it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be fun. I don't think it's going to be like what I would consider as meta. I would consider it to be more of a tech thing that comes up every now and then. Our songs in the new set here are He's a Tramp, which is the 1-cost inkable with the ability chosen character gets plus strength this turn for each character you have in play. That card just probably not good enough. I don't see it. I don't think we're going to need it. I would be shocked if we end up playing this card. However, All Is Found is the 5-cost inkable Sapphire song with put up to 2 cards from your discard into your inkwell face down and exert it. I have personally found All Is Found to be one of the better cards in set 7. I've been playing it a lot the last few weeks. I love what this card does. I love this card in Ink Geyser decks. It kind of enables you to put Ink Geyser and your other songs into your inkwell. So therefore, when you play an Ink Geyser, you have a chance to get another Ink Geyser back, which enables you to lock your opponent out of the game from getting really more than 3 or 4 resources. It also enables you to get your songs back. So when you're setting up your board, and pretty much the entire part of the Ink Geyser is setting up a nice board and then being able to sing songs to get back. So any game where you're like, hey, I'm going to like on my turn 5, or I have a Clarabelle on turn 4, it's out, it's nice. I get to untap, I get to play a Sail the Azurite Sea, and then play Ink Geyser, ink twice from Sail the Azurite Sea and my normal ink for the turn, and then sing a card like All Is Found, which puts another 2 ink into play. So you just went from 3 ink all the way back up to 7 ink, and your opponent is on 3 ink still. You really get to just accelerate the game and punish your opponent with Ink Geyser. So I think All Is Found is going to be a phenomenal card for those types of decks. Now on to the wonderful items. We have Sapphire Coil. Sapphire Coil is the 2-cost inkable item with the ability Brilliant Shine. During your turn, whenever a card is put into the inkwell, you may give chosen character -2 strength this turn. So as we know, obviously, Sapphire Coil is phenomenal in Ruby decks. We have Brawl, we have Sisus, we have Medusas, like so many good ways to interact and kind of just utilize the card. Well, Sapphire Emerald decks have the Muses and Under the Sea. So this card, quite functional. The idea that we can, ink a card and then make a Lawrence as an example, a 2/4. Well, now we can bounce Lawrence. The idea that we can ink and bounce Smee, there's just so many stances here where this card really does shine. So if we can afford to play a card like this, I do think it's going to make certain matchups a little easier. I also think it's very, very fun. I did this a couple times now where I actually inked and then I sung a All Is Found and I went ink, and then I played Under the Sea and got rid of a Maui Shark. That feels real awesome when you could just ink 3 cards in a turn and then get rid of a Maui Shark. So I think that Sapphire Coil certainly has a place in these. Whether or not it's an every deck card is debatable, but I don't think that you should just be like, oh, my opponent's playing Emerald Sapphire, aren't playing it, or oh, I don't have enough value out of this, so I shouldn't be playing it. As you're going to see pretty soon, I'm playing 2 copies of it in the list right now, and it feels pretty good. Card's very good, very powerful, and it really has the ability to just alter games in ways your opponents aren't ready for. Finishing out here, we have Emerald Coil. 3-cost uninkable with the ability Shimmering Wings. During your turn, whenever a card is put in your inkwell, chosen character gains vases until the start of your next turn. I think Emerald Coil is a very interesting card. I think it's particularly very good with Peter Pan. That's a card that we, kind of made famous a little bit in set 6, where, it comes into play, exert it. Your opponent isn't allowed to gain lore unless they challenge. So all of a sudden, if we can make Peter Pan evasive, it might just mean we lock our opponent out of gaining lore unless they specifically have evasive characters. Against a large portion of the metagame, that is very, very, very good. And this is obviously it's one of those where they have, you have to not be able to question anything else. But if we're a deck that's focused around Hero Hamada and winning with Hero Hamada, then Floodborn Hero Hamada plus a Peter Pan is 4 lore a turn, and it's 2 characters with evasive, one of which that has ward, the other which that has 6 willpower. So this card definitely has an opportunity cost, and depending on how the metagame goes and looks, it's certainly a card that I would keep on my radar and consider for my deck. Last but not least, Baymax's Charging Station. 3-cost inkable. When you play a Floodborn character, if you use Shift to play them, draw a card. So it's basically the 3-cost hero, but for all characters. Again, I think if you're one of those where you want to just play a million Floodborns, maybe there's a world for this. There's a lot of talk about Bell, from Emerald, the Emerald Bell from early on. You can have Emerald Bell, you can have Hero Hamada, you can have Diablo, you can have Clarabelle. We could have 20 Floodborn characters in our deck, and even if that's true, you're still not playing this card. You're not going to pay 3 for an inkable that you have to play 2 cards to refund itself. And yeah, it's a cute card, but no. So there you have it. A full breakdown of all the Emerald, Sapphire, and ironically the Sapphire Steel cards. Whoopsie. My bad, guys. There's some really good cards. There's some really interesting choices. And I think the key factor for Emerald Sapphire right now is that you should be excited as an Emerald Sapphire player because there's so many different and new ways to build this deck. I've said this a couple times in videos, but I have 3, 4, 5 different versions of Ink Geyser in my Dreamborn. Now we have the ability to play items. You look at Bell, you look at Tamatoa, and it just immediately incentivizes those things. What else can we do with that? What does Emerald kind of benefit from that Steel or Ruby doesn't? Like what are those things that we can kind of gain from that? Again, a card like Emerald Coil's a very interesting one. If I can give my Tamatoa evasive, that seems okay, guys. It makes it a little bit more difficult to deal with those things. So same thing with Aerial. If I can give my Aerial evasive, and now I have a Ward evasive that gains 5 lore turn, that's making stuff really difficult for people to interact with. So I think that there is a lot of opportunity cost for different things going on in Emerald Sapphire, and it should be an exciting time. The first few weeks, there's a lot of exploring being done. I've already played 3 different Emerald Sapphire decks the last few weeks, and all of them have felt fine. So it's just something to kind of take away that right now we're in this awesome exploring phase, but I am going to give you a deck to play with in week 1 if you're looking at it. So let's get into it. So here we have it, my week 1 Bend to My Will Arceus Island deck. Here, again, we have pretty much the standard, right? We'll go through the standard cards real quick. Clarabelle, Tipo, Muses, Grandma Tala, Clarabelle, Peter Pan, and, Bend to My Will, Azurite Sea, Visions. We still have the nice song package of Heffalumps, Mother Knows Best, You're Welcome, and How Far I'll Go. The newer cards that we have not really played before are definitely Under the Sea. This isn't a card that I had played in previous decks, but right now, early on, week 1, lots of aggressive strategies out there, utilizing Sapphire Coil as a new card. I think Under the Sea is really well positioned. We also have, Clarabelle, Hero, Peter Pan, Grandma Tala. There's 7 cost characters. That means that plus any other character you have in play have the ability to sing Under the Sea, which is a really big deal. We also have Morphs kind of coming in because of the Hero Hamada shift. We have the brand new 3-cost Hero Hamada as well. Utilizing Hero Hamada is huge. I think it just makes this deck that much better. It even enables us to play one of Grandma Tala as another way to gain conditional lore and kind of catch back up in the game while we're really maintaining board position. One of the biggest things about this deck in the past is that it's very hard to, control the board every turn and still gain lore. Grandma Tala is enabling that. This was a card I played a couple weeks ago. I actually covered it in the guide, or I covered it in the new decks video, but I played 3 or 4 Grandma Talas a few weeks ago. And the biggest takeaway I had was that there are games where you play defense the whole game and then you still have to get the 20 lore. So if I can put a Grandma Tala into play and just conditionally gain 1 lore, gain 2 lore, gain 3 lore, and that just tickles out over the next couple turns, it means that when I have to turn from defense to offense, I'm not gaining 20 lore. I might only have to gain 10. And that's a really, really big deal, which is why I think Grandma Tala has a good chance to make some type of an impact. I just don't want to commit, 3 or 4 deck slots to it, but I do think that 1 is a safe spot. Aside from that, here we are again, back to Bend to My Will. This card's just that good. We gain All Is Found. This is a card I'm very, very high on. I think it's a very, very good card, and I think it's definitely one you should consider playing. The shift line, when we can go turn 2 Tipo into turn 3 Grandma Tala, and we had the Clarabelle, that turn 4, if we can shift in the Clarabelle and immediately sing All Is Found, what that is enabling is this idea that we're going to draw cards back up from our opponent and the cards in his hand, and then we're going to start the turn with way more ink than our opponent was ever expecting us. Very similar to How Far I Go, right? Like How Far I'll Go is I get to look at the top 2 cards of my deck. I put one of them back into my hand and the other one in my inkwell. All Is Found is the exact same card as this when you can sing it for 5, because it puts both cards into the inkwell, which means we're not getting our card in our hand, but it goes to our inkwell, and then we just draw the card anyway because of our opponent. So because How Far I Go puts a card in our hand, it's 1 less card we draw from our opponent, where All Is Found enables us to just draw 2 cards when we play it. So it basically is a 5-cost inkable when we sing this, get 2 ink, and draw 2 cards with Clarabelle. Very, very good, very, very powerful. And obviously the shenanigans with Sapphire Coil and Under the Sea, with Sapphire Coil and the Muses, like it does all of these things very, really well. And it's going to enable you to get rid of cards that we're not supposed to be able to get rid of, which I think is very, very important. So the deck now comes in at $170. That's right. Once upon a time, it was a $75 deck. But again, like I said at the beginning, Clarabelles are now $20 a pop. So if, big if here, if you already had this deck, the upgrades for it are going to be pretty cheap. Hero Hamada is not going to be that expensive a card, in my opinion, because we're going to have 2 enchanted versions of it. We're going to be giving it away for free at set championships. So like everyone's going to have access to the card. So I think because of that, it's not going to be like a $10 super rare. I think it's going to be close to like a $3 to $5 super rare. So it shouldn't be too much expensive to like get it. Obviously, Sapphire Coil is an uncommon, not a big deal at all. And, you know, from that, really all is found is a rare, you know, maybe it's $2-3. It's very difficult for certain cards to be, unless they are every deck cards and every deck is playing them. Those are the ones for rares and super rares that go like haywire. I think with all is found not being an every deck card and not even being a 4 of in every deck, that it's probably just going to stay at around $3 to $5. And then, you know, Hero Hamada, again, there's just infinite of them. So it's just not going to be more than $5-6, I think, at max. Again, guys, I don't know how to don't buy pre-sales, right? Like the pre-sale items on TCG Player, if you buy our guide, Scott covers this so very well. It discusses why pre-sale, you know, are so expensive and what they can get away with and why you should not be purchasing them unless you are certain, and I mean like absolutely certain, that you can't get a better deal on them. So don't do those things. But all in all, if you had this deck from last time, it's probably a very minimal upgrade, but you now understand that, you know, congrats to you, because if you bought Clarabelle's 2 months ago when we made this video, well, you paid half price for them, maybe even less. You might have got them for like $7.50 each. Now they're kind of hovering around 22, 23. And I really think there's a chance they're going to get to 30 as time goes on, as more people, you know, enjoy decks like this. If Clarabelle finds a home in other decks, in other Emerald decks. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. All in all, this deck's very fun, very good. It still does everything we want it to do that it did from the past. It just got some modified cards that are just a little bit better and a little bit stronger. The card I forgot to talk about is Bellwether. This card is insane. I know we haven't talked about this deck in like a little while, but this was a deck that going into SSG Miami, Bellwether was the card. It was one of the last additions to the deck, and it was a key factor in what it felt like giving us the best opportunity to win against aggro decks. Now what it does is it enables a turn 2 when we ramp, when we play, you know, our Sail the Irish Right Sea or our Tipo. On turn 3, we can now play Bellwether first and then ink and give something reckless, which is very, very good in the aggro matchups, because a lot of times what ends up happening is that we'll play Muses on 3, and then on turn 4, they're just like, oh, Pete you. And then you can't play any actions. So it's kind of the same thing there too, where all of a sudden now we can play Bellwether, we could ink a card, give something reckless, and then we could play a Tipo and then ink another card and give another thing reckless, and then we would still get to our 7. That way, we would still get to our 7 ink, and then we would still be maintaining board presence and kind of get around the Pete as best as possible. That's what Bellwether has to offer, which is really nice. And then the final thing here is that with Tamatoas, with Hyrims kind of all at an all-time high, and any other cards that like might need to quest specifically to gain some extra benefit, it's a really great card against them too. So it's not like it's only good against aggro. It's more like a necessity against aggro. But this also means we don't just have to bounce Tamatoa every turn. Like we can be like, okay, whatever, I just ink a card. You have to answer my Bellwether. So I really like that idea. I like that concept a bunch. And it really does kind of turn the table in aggro matchups in a huge way. Right now, there's only 3 in this list. I'm not kidding. I would probably very, very much consider playing 4. There you have it, guys. A full breakdown of Emerald Sapphire in the Arceus Island. Lots to be had. In all honesty, can't even cover every deck in this video. So if you like this type of content, if you like me breaking down these archetypes, please let me know in the comments. Hit me up down there. Let me know what deck you want to talk about, what ink combination you want to talk about. What would you like to see next on the channel? It's very important for us to have the best information to help you. And this weekend, we are going to be live on stream over on Twitch, here on YouTube as well. Either which way you want to watch, we'll be there. Dick and I will be commentating it. I'm very much looking forward to it. We have a 50-person tournament that we are having in Allentown at the Encounter. Can't wait for the team to come out and hang out. Can't wait to just crack down, play some Set 7 with everybody. Very, very excited. So again, if you're not yet, hit that subscribe button if you want to see all the action here. And once again, thanks to you so much for watching today. Make sure if you haven't yet, hit that like button. If you like this video, you might also like the video on screen right now, which is showcasing how I broke down Amethyst Steel. So go ahead, click on it, watch that one, and I will catch you in the next video.